Senator Carpenter, Senator Caslin, Senator Givens,
I am present, traveling outside the district.
Senator Howell, Senator Parrott,
Present from my home office.
Senator Thayer,
Here in the room.
Senator Webb, Senator West,
Present in the room.
Senator Westerfield, Senator Wise, Representative Callaway,
Present from my district.
Representative Dixon,
Present from my district.
Representative Dossett, Representative Pfister,
Present in the room.
Representative Flood,
Present from the 75th District.
Representative Graham,
Present in my district and in the room.
Representative Hart,
Present in the room.
Representative Imes,
Present in my district.
Representative Kim King,
Present in the room.
Representative Cook, Representative Kulkarni,
Present in the district.
Representative McPherson,
Present in the room.
Representative Meeks, Representative Pratt,
Present in the room.
Representative Rayburn, Representative Raymond,
I'm here from my district.
Representative Reed,
Here in the room.
Representative Stevenson,
I am present from Lexington.
Representative Tate, Representative Thomas,
Present in the room.
Representative Tipton, Senator Hornback, and Chairman Heath.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum and we have a full schedule, so we're going to just get right on into it. If Mark Haney, President of Kentucky, I'm sorry, we got to go back and approve the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, nay. Minutes approved. Now we'll invite Mark Haney and his guest to the table, Drew Graham. I've called your names, but when you get to the table, if you'll turn your mic on and introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Mark Haney. I'm president of Kentucky Farm Bureau.
I'm Drew Graham, executive vice president of Kentucky Farm Bureau.
Thank you and welcome.
Well, Chairman Heath, Chairman Hornback, and members of the committee, I want to begin by saying thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and present to you really the issues that we're talking about in our organization. I also want to say thank you to each one of you for your open door policy that you've given to our organization and you continue to do, and not only to us in leadership, but to our legislative team as well. And I hope there's not a need for me to introduce them to you, but but I could if I needed to. But I do want to say thank you for that. You know, it allows us really to do what our mission was put in place over 100 years ago now, and that was to be the voice for Kentucky agriculture. And we continue to want to be able to do that, and we appreciate it very much. You know, we're here in Kentucky are, I think, so fortunate to have members of the General Assembly and legislative leaders that really have a true heart for rural Kentucky and rural America, and you all show that every day, and it is so pleasing to organizations like mine, to organizations like our commodity organizations, our other ag groups that we work with every day. You give them the same opportunity that you give us, and that makes us stronger. ag economy, and it certainly makes a stronger rural Kentucky, and we want to say thank you for that. I would like to also say thanks to you for last legislative session, doing a great job and really funding at an historic level our priority issue that we've had for many years there, and that's the broadband coverage that you did. That was phenomenal what you did for in Kentucky that many other states that we know didn't take that opportunity. So we're still looking forward to seeing that money get on the ground and start making a difference, certainly around the state. Problem is still there, as you know. Communication is a huge effort for everyone in rural Kentucky. We look forward to another legislative session coming up, and we have just finished going through our policy session, our resolutions committee that gathers resolutions from all over the state of Kentucky. They put those in place, and they will be presenting those to our delegate body here just in a couple of weeks. But we do have that work completed. We have it really bound and ready to present. I'd like to talk about a little bit about some of those today. I'm going to start really with an issue that came from widespread across Kentucky. We got a resolution from over half of our counties on this issue, spread from one end of the state to the other, and that's solar energy and solar farms, and so that's certainly, it's on the minds of everyone in rural Kentucky right now. I will say in some counties and in some localities it can be a divisive issue. There's places that if your neighbor is putting in a solar farm, sometimes you're not so enthused with it as they are. So it creates a lot of division right there. However, we come down as our organization on the side of that it is a private property rights issue. And our organization, we believe if you own your property, you have some say-so on what you want to do with it. So we will continue to move in that direction in our organization. As we look at solar energy and how it's going to be regulated, if it's going to be regulated, there's two main issues that we see that's centered around that's important to us. One is a decommissioning bond that's in place, and this bond should be reviewed periodically. We think at least every 3 years to ensure that the sufficient resources are there to put the land back to its original state at the end of the project. We've got prime farmland that we're talking about that's going out of production right here, and at some point in time it needs to be put back into production, and we think there's got to be money there to be able to get that to be done. It's also an important issue, we think, is to have oversight on the transfer of the entity. If it does transfer from an entity to an entity, what we have seen many times is one entity will maybe lease the farm, but there's another entity that will build a facility, and maybe even another one that actually does the production of the energy right there. So for the landowner and all those involved, counties, we think they need to know who has that lease and who's responsible for that. So we think that is extremely important. Moving on, should the General Assembly take up in any tax work in this upcoming session, we will stand, be ready to work with on tax and reforming Kentucky's tax code. Now, certainly, with that being said, there's some things that's very important to us when we talk about taxes in Kentucky. And one, of course, you've heard us say it many times, and that is our exemption that we get for agriculture inputs on sales tax. That is one that we always know that is so important to everyone across the state of Kentucky. As you know, we're in the process right now in a sign-up period with Department of Revenue and getting that tax number that's put in place, and I think it comes into play at the beginning of the year. And we understand right now we're only about 6,500 or maybe less than 7,000 applications being put in. And truthfully, all summer long, we carried that tax form from meeting to meeting and all over the state, encouraging people to pick it up and go with it. So some put it off to the end. That's what happens, of course. But we support that. We think that'll be a beneficial thing, and I hope we're able to get that done. Our other priority issue on taxes certainly centers around House Bill 44 that was passed in 1979, which limits the amount of property tax revenue to 4% plus new growth. In the farming community, rural community, most of the assets of our folks are held in land and in property. So we think we like broad-based taxing, and to put an undue amount on landowners is problematic for our organization. Regarding the state budget, we will certainly continue our support to see the 50% of allocation go to the master settlement from the Master Settlement Fund to be allocated to Ag Development Board, as we have in the past. And I don't know of any state, there is no other state that's had the success that Kentucky has by using that model. And you're to be congratulated for that, to continue to move on that. Now, I would be in trouble with our Commissioner of Agriculture if I didn't really reveal that our policy still continues to say that we look for a well-financed Kentucky Department of Agriculture, and but the truth of the matter is that is exactly our policy, and we really and truly work with the Department of Agriculture every day. And we do need a good solid funding mechanism there. The other thing I'd like to address is, I know you see retail at the farm now that you didn't see a few decades ago. You can we have farmers markets all over the state of Kentucky. We have farm markets, on-farm markets, that in our organization we certify more than 100 farm markets every year. It's spread across the state, and when you go to those markets, you will see activity in those parking lots through the middle of the week that'll look like an urban business closer to town. Those parking lots are full, and we're doing retail business at the farm, which I think is going to continue to expand and get bigger. And it's more meaningful to the consumers to be able to do that. But to be able to do that, we have to have good, solid transportation. We have to have good roads, safe roads. We used to say to get our product to the market, but now we include in that we've got to get the people to the rural communities safely and off the road, and be able to generate income across the state of Kentucky. So we will continue to advocate for that 22.2% allocation for the Rural Road Fund and Secretary Road and County Road programs. So we will continue to focus on that. As I said earlier, we're going to be starting our policy process in a couple of weeks, so it's really 2 weeks from tomorrow that we have our annual meeting. And I'd like to give you an invitation, every one of you, to come to our meeting at any time you can possible. It'll be about a 3-day event, and we're back into more of a traditional meeting that we used to have. We're expecting a good crowd of people at the Galt House, downtown Louisville, and I hope you were able to be for that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's really all of my remarks, but I'd be glad to answer a question if anyone would like.
Thank you. And we do have a few questions and comments, I'm sure. And I didn't see anything on your agenda that I disagreed with. I think you're amongst friends here. And one thing about the ag community and the ag committee is we're all on the same page. And we'll start with Chairman Hornback.
Well, thank you for being here, Mark, and it's always good to have Farm Bureau here and let us know what their thoughts are, because you all are out here in all 120 counties and really have a pulse for what's going on out through the community. A couple of questions, and this is concerning or sort of surrounding the solar issue, because it is a big issue that I'm trying to work through right now. And we talk about private property rights, but also in the private property rights of the landowners, they're going to be used in the project. But then you also have the private property rights of those adjoining landowners, or maybe not even adjoining landowners, that have a view of that. Just your personal thoughts on that, because when you talk about private property rights, there are both sides to that.
You're right, and that's in every discussion that we've been in, that's been the issue. When we see this brought up at a county level, that really the sad to say, but it's whoever is leasing the property is very pro in the situation right there, and all the neighbors are kind of anti, and I think it's because that it's the unknown. A lot of it's the unknown, and that's the reason we say that we think at the very minimal we have to have some oversight and regulations that folks can know what that this is going to be looked at. It's going to be watched. It's got to be done properly, and that's the reason we're asking for that look every 3 years to be able to take a look at that bonding mechanism. And if things are out of whack, if it's grown up, if it's being not taken care of, and things are going downhill, there has to be some mechanism there to be able to go in and straighten that back up. You're right. We don't want blighted communities anywhere, but we certainly don't want to blight the community of a green operation all across the state of Kentucky. Rural Kentucky is beautiful. We certainly don't want to lose that aesthetic value.
One more question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
PACE program. When we look at these solar projects that are going to be more of an industrial site, or they're taken out of agriculture. If you look at agriculture in the state of Kentucky over the last 10 years, we've lost about 16,000 acres a year that have moved from production ag to some other use. Now, that can be residential, commercial, industrial, solar, whatever it might be. It seems to me like an opportune time to talk about starting a funding mechanism for the PACE program, the Purchase of Agricultural Conservation Easements, that we used to have in place. The board's in place. They did a good job, few complaints about what they did, but you talked about preserving ag land. Mm-hmm. And we all know that the majority of these solar projects, and I'm not picking on solar because this needs to be broad-based, encompass any land that's taken out of ag into some other type of use. But the solar project specifically, and a lot of our other development too, is on our prime agricultural land. And we know after last year, we saw some things that weren't on the shelves at the stores. We see some of that happening now. I think that we need to think about the future 20, 25 years from now, not for some of us as elected legislators, 2 to 4 years, but think about 20, 25 years from now and how we ensure that the next generation has ample food supply. And in doing that, would Farm Bureau, does your policy allow that if we put in place a broad-based impact fee of, say, $100 an acre, I don't know the exact number, but say $100 an acre for all lands that are converted out of ag use into something else, those funds go directly into the PACE program? A lot of other states do funding for a preservation program of some type. But would Farm Bureau, does your policy allow you to be in favor of something that is a sustainable, reoccurring funding mechanism for the PACE program to ensure that we try to preserve as much of our prime agricultural land as we possibly can, but understanding that the PACE program is not geared just towards a classification of land, whether it's prime land or whatever, all land is eligible for that?
At this point, no, we don't have policy on that. Let me understand your question. That would be taking farmland out for development for commercial development or shopping center or anything.
Residential, anything.
Residential, anything? No, we don't have policy on that.
But it would just be a one-time impact fee of $100 an acre.
Mm-hmm. To be paid by?
To be paid by whoever was going to develop it, whoever did the developing of it.
That'd be interesting. We don't have policy on that right now. Certainly.
But you do have policy on the PACE program.
We do have. We support the PACE program.
We just need a funding mechanism.
Yeah, we support you all funding it right now.
Well, this is a way for somebody else to fund it, not the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Thomas.
Thank y'all for both being here. I know just recently, this last week, the president signed in the new infrastructure bill. $65 billion is going to be put towards broadband, which you mentioned straight out of the chute how important it is to rural communities across our state. Will y'all be looking at the numbers that might be coming to Kentucky? And then if so, how is that divided? I've heard there's some that's going to be going to the infrastructure, but then I've also heard that there's some that could be going towards the assistance for the bills on broadband. Is that something y'all will be looking into?
We certainly will, Representative Thomas. We will certainly be watching that. And that is such an important issue. We're interested in seeing the plan that's coming forth for the distribution and really how that's going to be put in place. And at this point, we really haven't seen that yet. So we're looking forward to being able to even have input on that. There is funding coming into the state right now out of USDA funding. That's I think there's like $100 million that was announced coming to Kentucky back a few weeks ago. But that's not the funding that you all set aside, my understanding. So we're waiting to kind of look at that, hoping to get a view into that.
All right, thank you.
Representative Pratt.
Thank you all for everything you do, and you've heard me talk about this before. Walters, I'm sure you guys are on your radar. It's something we need to be aware of that the president's looking at doing by executive order. It's waters of the U.S. He's brought that back. Obama did it. Now he's bringing it back. I want everybody to understand the impact of this. They will be able to come to the farm and regulate a mud puddle on your farm. It's extreme overreach, and if this happens, it will affect every farmer in the United States. This is something you guys were ahead of it for. Several of the professional organizations I'm a member of. I just want to put this on everybody's radar. This is extremely harmful to the American farmer, not in Kentucky, but across the United States. It's something that will absolutely destroy farming. I don't want to comment about that, but also thank you about the rights of the farmer. I'm going to go back to a story when I was going to UK. I still have Charlie Walters, who just passed away yesterday at 104 years old. They built a subdivision next to his farm. on a Saturday afternoon, I was helping him on the farm. A lady stopped us and said, "My dogs are chasing your cattle. What are you going to do about it?" Now, it was on his property, on his land. People don't get it. They don't understand that they were trespassing, and she wanted him to move his cattle so her dogs would not come across the fence on his property and chase his cattle. But that's what we're facing, and that was many years ago. I'm sure it's getting much worse. Thank you guys for everything you do.
Thank you. My response to that is we are working in tandem with American Farm Bureau, and I sit on that board as well. And we're taking up the issue of WOTUS and working as close as we can with that through EPA. The issue of education to the folks that live in farming communities that are not particularly on the farm, and that we're seeing more and more of that as we go along. We are spending a lot of our resources educating and pushing out to our younger members that are coming along about agriculture, and we're encouraging young farmers, young members of our organization, whether they're farming or not, to address issues that are common for life in rural America, whether it's following a piece of equipment on the highway at a certain period of time, or when dust is beginning to ball up because we're having to go through planting or spreading fertilizer or whatever. We just want an educational program there to make folks understand farming is important, and there's a way of doing business that we have to contend with.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a follow-up comment?
Yes, sir.
And this is that's actually my second point, and I'm sure you guys are aware of it. Inputs for the farmer. I can tell you, as someone who buys several tons of fertilizer a year, I'm extremely concerned about the cost of inputs. The same fertilizer I bought in the spring last year at $368, mid-year was $568. This fall, now we're buying truckloads at a time, is well over $1,000. We're getting ready to prepay and buy enough chemicals and fertilizer to get us through June, A, to lock in the price, and B, guaranteed delivery. This is going to be a major obstacle to farmers, and if they don't get ahead of it, it's already relating to higher food prices at the grocery store. But if we don't get a handle on this, it will put farmers out of business, and it's a major obstacle right now. I'm telling you, chemicals are going through the roof, and we're paying at least 35, if not 50% more for all of our chemicals and all of our fertilizer. It's going to be a major obstacle to farmers. So, again, appreciate you all advocating, but we got to get a handle on this because it will put farmers out of business.
Thank you. Well understood. Yes.
We have one more, and then we'll wrap this up. Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to thank Farm Bureau for weighing in on the solar issue. Mm-hmm. I think this is one of the most important issues we'll discuss this session. Just want to make a couple quick points. This is my case as to why you should be involved. There's going to be a tremendous economic impact to farm communities. The economic engine of the farm community is the farmland itself. So you've got this big tract of land, feed, supplies, trucks, equipment, labor. That farm, every year it churns through that farm. Once it's covered with solar panels, you got a guy in a little white truck driving around checking. And that power is going on the grid. In most cases, it's going away from Kentucky. So this is very important. Secondly, loss of prime farmland. Senator Hornback mentioned 16,000 acres a year of prime farmland loss. Now, we're losing that to a bunch of different things, development, solar panels, other things. But we learned, I think, in our last meeting that there's 30,000 acres on the books teed up in PSC, ready to be moved into the solar area. And another thing we've learned is the best farmland for solar is prime farmland, that reduced slope. So this is something we need to get right, and we appreciate Farm Bureau weighing in on this and assisting. Thank you.
Thank you. It's certainly it's on the front minds of all of our members. So whether whether we really want to be in that. We do. We want to be in that issue, but our members are going to demand that we're there.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I stumbled into this issue last year. This is an issue that found us. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how quickly this has ratcheted up. I've got 4 major developments in my Senate district alone. So the issue has found us, and we need to react quickly to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have Representative Tipton, and this will have to be the last one because of our time. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Mr. Haney, Mr. Graham, I appreciate you being here today, and I got on a little late, so I apologize if you've already covered this. We recently heard that we missed out on an opportunity for a beef processing plant in Kentucky, and I'm confident your policy would be supportive of that. So if you could comment on that a little bit and what you think, maybe the prospects that we could do that would help our beef farmers here in Kentucky. Thank you.
Could you understand the question?
The question, I think, was the loss of announcement of a plant in West Kentucky that was just announced in Missouri in the last day or so.
That's correct.
That was disappointment, Representative Tipton, all across Kentucky in the farm community, of course. There were high hopes that Kentucky would be able to secure that. It didn't work out. Really, I'll be honest with you, we were late to the table in our organization because we were not aware of it going on till really it was almost gone before we even really knew about it. So I really other than that we don't have any comment.
Thank you, and I think Commissioner Quarles is up next, and he may have some additional comments. So thank you guys for coming and for your time. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, before we leave here today, I'd first of all, we appreciate everything you do. You know, we're a grassroots organization, and just like you, we listen to those individuals that are out in the trenches, and that's so important. But this committee and having an opportunity to chair it, my wife told me over 25 years and a whole lot of gray hair ago. But it was certainly one of the honors that I've had in my professional career, and I certainly appreciate that. But I would like to bring attention. Of course, we know that Senator Hornback is stepping down, and all the leadership that you give agriculture and that you give those individuals, especially live in the rural communities, is certainly appreciated. We appreciate that, and it's had an opportunity to work with you on several levels over the years. And Katie, you can talk about some of the stuff we got to work on, I guess. But I certainly appreciate that, and as an organization, we appreciate that. And I just wanted to, before we left here today, be remiss before we said that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Commissioner Quarles. Welcome back. You're no stranger to this committee, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. And for the record, if you'll introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Ryan Quarles, Commissioner of Agriculture. Good morning, Chairman, members of the General Assembly. Thanks for having us back. 2021's been a strong harvest. A little late getting the crop in, been damp this last few weeks, but overall, statewide, pretty good year for agriculture on the production side. In fact, it's been so good, we had the largest pumpkin ever grown in our state at the state fair. We had the largest ginseng root ever recorded to go through our office, over 1 pound. It's expected to sell for $100,000 overseas. We're the biggest wild ginseng state in the United States. Horse sales are great, and the bourbon industry has flourished so much that some people have even started their own bourbon brands. And so it's just been a great year for agriculture. We had a great Kentucky State Fair. Attendance was down, but that's okay. We expected it. But the ag shows were phenomenal. And I know that our farm families really appreciated that. And we appreciate you all making the trip to the Kentucky State Fair, too. Glad to host you. Just a couple months ago, we hosted all the ag commissioners in America in Louisville with NASDA as I finished out my year as president. It was a great time to show off and showcase Kentucky Proud and Kentucky agriculture. It was a lot of fun. And right now in Louisville, the largest purebred livestock show in the world is going on right now at the Fair and Expo Center. A Both the number of animals and number of people on property are up. We actually had a sold-out rodeo on Saturday night, and so there's just a lot of interest right now with people getting back in touch with their roots, getting their hands dirty, and participating in 4-H and FFA and other sorts of youth livestock organizations. So just real quickly, just want to cover some of the things we anticipate coming up this next session with your all's help. Of course, number one is funding our operating budget. And yes, Mr. Haney's right. It's policy of Kentucky Farm Bureau for a well-funded Department of Agriculture. And I think we'll have our submission to you all. I think it already actually went in. Secondly, discussion of ARPA. It's my belief that a lot of these federal dollars came in from Washington, D.C., and it's your job as the legislature to appropriate them. And so I hope that you all look at a few projects that I think might qualify. We still need some clarification if these one-time asks would qualify. Number one would be a boost into our food banks right now. You all already generously fund the food banks trust fund. Again, that money is used to buy up commodities that would otherwise rot or not make it to a supermarket, compensate that farmer, get it into the hands of those in need, and who knows, you might create a Kentucky Proud consumer out of it once folks get back on their feet. One caveat with this, a lot of that money is used to buy up produce. We'd like to be able to use some of that money to buy protein, Kentucky Proud beef, pork, chicken, lamb, etc. We were able to do that with generous donation actually through Farm Bureau this past year, and so hopefully we can have some one-time boosts into that as well. We also want to set up a grant program for our food pantry. So we have 7 food banks, big sites. Our food pantries are those local distribution centers, and they are not created equally. One of them was just burnt down in Garrett County, unfortunately, this past week due to arson. We do have a plan for them. We're working on that. We have a few donors willing to come to the plate, help them with both a temporary and long-term fix on that. But these grants would be used for shelving, refrigerators, storage capacity, etc. And in some cases, these food pantries have to reject donations because they don't have a way to properly and safely store that food. And so that would be an ARPA ask as well. A lot of us spent some time at FFA camp growing up. Their facilities need a little help. There might be an opportunity to help fund them with a larger gymnasium and some other classroom activities, et cetera. And again, this is more than just FFA. A lot of organizations use this. Happy to work with you on that as well. And the last ARPA ask would be with our county fairgrounds. Just this past week, we distributed $300,000, I think, to 7 different counties. But the total ask was $1.4 million. And so we think that if it qualifies for ARPA, maybe a one-time ask, get our county fairgrounds caught up, bleachers, pole barns, etc. I think that might be a good thing. And of course, I'm working on some projects in higher education as well. The last budgetary ask is one that we have struggled with at the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, and that is our salary scale. Prior to June of this year, we had over 60 employees who made less than $30,000 a year. And as you can imagine, it's hard for us to train someone and then retain them. And when someone finds a better paying job across Frankfort, we can't help but be happy for that individual. But it's starting to affect us, and so we would be mindful to have a conversation with you all on this, whether it be a salary adjustment or a change to a 40-hour work week, which of course would boost that pay as well. So we're happy to talk with you all about that as well. A couple other things. Again, we are engaged on the solar conversation, and I think that Senator West, you're exactly right. We got to get this right. We got to get it right in session. So we are at your all's disposal with our resources as well as our expertise on that issue. A couple other bills that we hope to get moving this session. One has to do with a motor fuel reg update. And I know that we have some friends in the room that are interested in that, so we would encourage you now to contact our department so we can get the kinks worked out with that issue well ahead of time. It's something we've been working on for about 2 years. Another one would be an amusement ride update piece of legislation. Same situation. We've been working on this one for a couple years, and it actually would give us a pathway for some privatization of some of these issues. The next one's pretty cool. Drone technology is going to continue to be more prevalent every year. I was down at Murray State a few weeks ago, and they have a drone that at this point can do 20 acres a day. Now, I know we have to scale up if you're going to get it efficient, but it's going to happen. It had a 20-foot spraying boom on it. The biggest obstacle with drone and aerial spraying right now is not the size, but it's the weight. That once you cross over, I think maybe 55 pounds on that device, it triggers a different type of FAA license that is, my understanding, very difficult and lengthy to get. And so we would hope that you all would pass a resolution to send to Washington, D.C. to maybe look at this and adjust it so that as this area of ag technology grows, that we can make it more farmer friendly and more research friendly at our research farms as well. Some good news, we have invested almost $7 million into our meat processing plants across Kentucky over the past 18 months, about 30 different USDA inspected plants. We're getting close to doubling our kill capacity at Kentucky-owned, Kentucky-based processing plants. That's good news. The transition of Ag Development Board over the Department of Ag has been seamless. We've seen no disruption in either grants or loan servicing. And the last thing we need to do is get them moved over to our main campus as well. We have a really interesting sheep and goat project we're kicking off that could really be a bright light, particularly for eastern Kentucky. And we're happy to talk about that maybe a little bit more in January. Trade is a bright spot. A lot of the trade agreements that we've entered into the last couple of years are starting to pay off for our farmers. I think it's one reason why we're seeing an uplift in our commodity prices as well. Great year for farmers markets, and so we always want to help support that, particularly when it comes to financial support as well. And a cool announcement that happened just 2 weeks ago. Haney's Dairy, located down in Bowling Green, after a long effort but great cooperation with Kroger, they're now selling Kentucky Proud Milk in 41 Kroger stores. And so this is a game changer, and it's really cool. A couple issues real quick. Of course, supply chain, inflation hitting a 30-year high. People are feeling it at the grocery store and at the pump right now. And, of course, as Representative Pratt just talked about, severe increase on inputs for the spring. So we're very concerned about profitability of farmers going into 2022, both with being able to lock in their inputs, but also to find them as well. One last thing, continue to work on hunger in Kentucky. We're actually going to have a meeting later this afternoon with the Hunger Initiative Task Force here in Frankfort. And I asked Kentuckians if they want to chip in around the holidays. There's 3 things you can do. Number 1, donate food to our pantries. Number 2, if you feel so inclined, make a monetary donation at feedingkentucky.org. Number 3, if you can't donate money or donate food, donate your time. They're always looking for volunteers, especially around the holidays. And speaking of the holidays, our Kentucky Proud marketing campaign is well underway. We're promoting everything Kentucky Proud, and we encourage Kentuckians to put something from our state on their dinner tables from Thanksgiving through Christmas and every day of the year. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Always a pleasure to have you come testify before our committee, and look forward to working with you in the upcoming session. I know you're close by and you'll have a chance to run back over anytime we need you. I don't see any questions or comments at this time, so hang on. Representative Graham, sure.
I just, I guess I want to make a comment from the last discussion that we had in regards to, I believe we're talking about the American Food Group, which was in Christian County. And it's my understanding, and I want to make sure we clarify it, that the local community in Christian County was not supportive of the project. Is that true? That resolutions had been made by the local government that they were not supportive of the project?
I think that once the rumors started, because the local leadership was excluded intentionally, in my opinion, from this project being landed in Kentucky, the rumors are what killed this project. And of course, the local community, when they heard a rumor that the Mexican drug cartel was building a beef processing plant in western Kentucky, or that there'd be dead cattle on the side of the road, or that Haitian immigrants were already moving into Christian County, those are the rumors that I heard. Of course, there was going to be local opposition. What I think we had a missed opportunity here. I think that a lack of cooperation with the Kentucky Department of Ag, and of course, we retain subject matter expertise on these issues. The lack of involvement of the Kentucky Cattlemen's Association, probably one of the best in the nation, excluded from conversations to retain this processing plant. I think that's what killed the project, was a lack of cooperation in this town. Because there's a couple things I think we could have done differently. Number one, I think that we could have, on the ag perspective, have found some alternative sites. Since the last time we spoke, I think I've had 6 judge executives, economic development coordinators contact my office, say we would welcome a project like this in our home county. Number two, if we had been involved earlier, I know the landowner down there. I personally know him. I could have had a conversation with that individual and said, let's go to Wisconsin. Let's go take a tour of what a modern processing plant looks like, where there's no smells, modern technology. It's not the 1960s view that a lot of us may have of a processing plant. And that may have changed some minds. That's something I know that we could have done differently. The Department of Ag have been involved. And I think it might be appropriate that legislation's introduced that would encourage or mandate cooperation, because I would hate for us to miss out on another agriculture opportunity because of partisan politics. And the last thing I've got to say is that this is the number one goal of our cattle industry, and it's been the number one goal for 20 or 30 years. So I would suggest that if that opportunity were ever to come up again, that regardless whoever's in office, regardless whoever occupies the Cabinet for Economic Development, that they pick up the phone and call the Ag Commissioner, and that they pick up the phone and call the Kentucky Cattlemen's Association, because chances are that's why it landed in Missouri. So I talked to the Ag Commissioner yesterday in Missouri, and their governor and their Ag Commissioner worked hand in glove to recruit this company. They worked the local community. They involved them early on, and they landed a $350 million investment yesterday and 1,400 jobs. And it's sad. It's sad that we have to deal with this in our state because of partisan politics.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just to follow up and with my good friend, I think this administration has worked very well with local communities. We see what happened with the Ford plant. They worked very closely with that community, and they were able to pull off. And as a result of those negotiations, they are now bringing in a company, and really expanding a company because Ford is already here. So they obviously have the know-how as to how to negotiate those kind of projects. But the one key thing is that the local community was engaged and involved, and they talked with them, and I'm sure that has been the same case in regards to that. And the administration is going to listen to the local, I think any governor is going to also work with the local constituents and the local government particularly to make sure that they're on board with an agency that's coming into their community. So I want to make that very clear that I think that the administration has shown itself in terms of working with the local community in trying to bring in businesses to help those local communities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'm excited about the Ford plant, battery plant, EV technology. We see it in my hometown in Georgetown, where we have more hybrid and electric utility and production. So I think that's great. But I'd be interested to ask people like Myron Dossett, your colleague, about when he was brought in on this project. I'd be interested to see how the other local elected officials in Christian County were brought into this as well. So look, it's in the past. The announcement's been made. We missed out on a transformational beef processing plant in our state. But let's not do it again. Let's change the tone in this town and work together. The governor has my cell phone. Thank you.
Senator Webb.
I've got to chime in on this too. I've talked about it a lot, and I'll be brief, but I agree with the commissioner on this, and I've been very vocal in discussions with the cattlemen and this administration about how this went down. And this isn't unique to agriculture. It's an economic development issue sometimes across the scope, and it's been through many administrations. I've been here a long time. that, you know, we sometimes don't have the information that we need even to fund projects that we're asked to write a check for. But so this isn't real unique, but what's unique about an agriculture project is you've got to educate the community. You've got to educate your office holders because you've got groups out there, especially in a project like this, that work against animal agriculture on all levels, and especially this level. And if they can add cost to a producer, they're going to do that in transportation. You know, if they don't like it, they're going to cost you out, and they're going to propaganda you out. And this is a perfect example of that. So an ag project of any scope and nature, whether it's FFA or how you utilize an animal or display it at a university or whatever, you better prepare for that nowadays. And this was a lack of preparation, and I hope it's a lesson learned for any future ag project, because this was a goal. I've been House Bill 611. Let's go back a long way. I'm the elder statesman historian, I guess, on this, but it's the truth. This was the goal, and the pandemic's brought to light the need on local processing and the consumer of it all, and you know, this is a lesson learned, hopefully, but it's also for any future development, for any future administration, because an ag project just needs a little more attention on the front end and education on the community, and so, you know, and it's not unique to ag projects. It's economic development projects throughout. Sometimes we don't have the information we need as a body to make a sound decision. And I've got to get to the North American because I got a little bull calf down there that misses me. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Pfister, and then Pratt.
Regardless of the problems with the current administration, I do want to thank the Commissioner of Agriculture and Farm Bureau for what they do for agriculture. You know, I used to sell a lot of beef right off the farm, but there's not a local processor around here that we utilize to do that. We do have to have good roads for those ag businesses on the farm. Many of my cousins ran truck gardens years ago. I mean, we're talking back in the 60s. Sold a lot of stuff right off the farm. It's very important. These niche markets are where we're going in agriculture in a lot of respects. And I just want to thank you all for stepping up and doing your all's part.
Thank you.
Representative Pratt.
Thank you, sir, for your comments about the meat processing plant. And again, what people need to understand, most people do not understand our industry. They have no clue what we do, how we do it, or what it serves. And to Representative Graham's comments about Glendale, I'll be honest, I have friends I went to school with that were adamantly opposed to that Ford plant coming there. Now, I won't say they were right. I'm telling you, it wasn't like everybody said, welcome with open arms. There were people that were opposed to it in that local community. So with that, you'll always have that, but it's unconscionable not to bring in the departments that know this business better than anyone to help sell this project. And from what I understand, that's what didn't happen, and that's why this project failed. Bring in the people that know this industry, not people who have no understanding of what we do and how we do it. Thank you for your comment, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see anybody else, and our time is slipping away, so that might be a good place to change out our speakers.
Thank you, Chairman Heath, Chairman Hornback. Look forward to working with you. Conference season is about to get started, so put on those boots and suits, and we'll see you around Kentucky. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Well, welcome to the table now. We're going to change our schedule a little bit. Tony Toops and the Advantage Capital Group and Jay Dowdy. I'll just let you guys come on up, and anybody that with you, Tony, that needs to be at the table.
No, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. The floor is yours. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Tony Toops with Advantage Capital, and I have with me Mr. Jad Dowdy, who is the CFO of Danimer Scientific. What we want to talk about real briefly is a program I've discussed with many of you over the last couple of sessions. It's a way to increase access to capital for small businesses in rural Kentucky. Our friends in Ohio have done 2 programs of this with very good success, as has Georgia and Utah. Georgia did the Georgia Agribusiness Rural Jobs Act in 2017. And Mr. Dowdy is going to tell, I think, his experience and his company's experience and the fantastic result they have had through access to capital that was patient and flexible and allowed them to grow at a time when it was crucial. And they are in the business of taking canola oil, fermenting it into a biodegradable plastic polymer that becomes a biodegradable plastic straw. And Mr. Dowdy is on a time schedule, so I'm going to let him talk, and I'll be quiet, and then I'm happy to jump in and answer questions once he goes. So, Jad, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Tony. My name's Jad Dowdy. I'm the CFO of Danimer Scientific. We're a company that manufactures biopolymers in Bainbridge, Georgia. Bainbridge, Georgia is a small community in southwest Georgia. The economy is largely agriculture-based, population of about 12,000 in the city, about 26,000 in the county. We got our start back in 2004. And the seed capital of the company largely came from people in the agricultural business. So I can't tell you how many times that I've gone to somebody's barn to pick up an investment check. But anyway, the company slowly grew. We first started out making compostable biopolymers, but then back in 2007, we purchased some patents from Procter & Gamble related to the manufacture of fully biodegradable plastic resins. So this would be plastics that you can make and throw away in a ditch, and within a matter of months, once exposed to the environment, would disintegrate. So it was a great opportunity for us. It took us, several years to get to the point where we were ready to commercialize the technology, and we kind of reached an impasse where we needed extra capital to manufacture larger volumes of the biodegradable resin, so that some of our customers like Nestle and PepsiCo could purchase these larger trial volumes and run it on their machines. After kind of piecemealing it with equity, we finally were introduced to Advantage Capital, and were able to bring in a loan for about $10 million under the Georgia Agriculture and Rural Jobs Act. That was a program that made flexible financing available to rural communities that are counties that had a population of less than 50,000. So that money came in. We were able to expand our machinery and equipment, also hire new employees, and were able to produce resin that was successfully run by these large customers of ours. And because of that success, the company was actually able to go public in December of 2020. We're now a publicly traded company, and that same resin that we developed using the funds made available by Advantage is what we're manufacturing today in Winchester, Kentucky, at our plant there. We've actually purchased that plant and through a sale leaseback transaction, and have subsequently, I think, invested almost $170 million in expanding that facility as we scale it up. So it was a great program for us. Allowed us to continue to grow and operate in a rural county of Georgia. And personally, it was great for me because I grew up in Bainbridge, lived there until I was 18, moved away, and was able to come back and find a very interesting career in a farm community. So anyway, it was a great program, and it's done a lot for our state.
Well, thank you, Jad. And members, I would just point out that during, as we lead up to session, we're working with John McCarthy and his team on getting the information to you. And we're happy to show you the real world examples in Ohio. There's more than 30 companies in Georgia that have benefited. And this basically is we partner with local banks. And in the Georgia program, there were 5 fund managers came in and participated. So we have competitors. It's not just about us. from Iowa, Missouri, Louisiana, and elsewhere, Georgia, that have come in and offer these financing to these companies that we see great potential. Jad's company is probably the rock star, if you will, because when they went public, Jad didn't mention it, but they're now getting ready to invest several $100 million in Decatur County, Georgia. I think they're projected hiring up to 400 new people with the plant expansion there. And that is a very good real-world example. But some of the other companies, too, have been a little less sexy, maybe. But, for example, we have over in Pearson, Georgia, Katie Bag. They make goat feed bags and onion bags for stores. They employ 100 people, good, solid member of the community, allow people to stay home, live in the county where they grew up, as Jad alluded to, have a life, have a career, and put tax revenue into both the state general fund, importantly, and also into the local municipality in the county. One thing, Jad's boss has a great line I liked. He said, if you have a GED, you can get a job on my loading dock. If you have a PhD, you can get a job in my laboratory. And I think that's a really good encapsulation of what these types of programs and access to capital can mean for these companies. A lot of the financing is typically between $500,000 up to about $5 million. Jad's was on the larger end of that. But these are true small businesses that have opportunity to grow, to modernize equipment, hire additional people, and do it in a way that is fiscally responsible for the state. It's modeled after the state and federal new markets tax credit programs, so there is a tax credit component, but the capital is matched dollar for dollar with private capital. Fund managers have to have federal qualifications in order to participate. The state then decides who can raise a fund. All the capital has to be invested in a very tight timeline. Once all the capital is invested within the first 24 months of the program, only then can the state premium tax credits be redeemed. And they're capped, and they're sunsetted, and they're limited. So unlike my home state of Louisiana, we have a film tax credit that's refundable and transferable. This is neither. And it's also a one-year activity credit. This requires an investment to be in place for 7 years. And it's designed that each fund manager makes a commitment to the state that they will create and retain certain numbers of jobs. And those job commitments tell the state that this is going to be revenue positive at the time of the fund is over. So that's it in a nutshell. And there's a lot of moving parts. Happy to answer questions. We will be coming to visit during session. I think Representative Heath's going to be our champion once again. So I'll leave it at that. I know time is tight.
Thank you for that. And how many years does this make now? We've been talking about this and trying to get this passed.
4, maybe 5.
Yes, sir. So I hope we're successful this year. I appreciate the presentation from your client in Georgia to hear a real life experience. I know there's quite a few more that you've shared with me over time, and look forward to you guys being able to come back and talk to us individually in our offices and answer specific questions. And at this time, I'm not seeing any right now, so we'll let you go and bring our next presenter up, but feel free to come back and see us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So we'll have H. Barlow with the Executive Director of the Kentucky Dairy Development Council, and even though I just said your name, I'll let you repeat it for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Got to get my PowerPoint up here.
You can check to see if the green light is on your mic also, that indicates your mic. And we do have, for our members, a copy in your folder of the presentation.
Sure, yeah, it's over here. Let's see. They were supposed to be somebody in here to help me. Okay, what I do to advance it here? Turn on the Zoom for you. What I do to advance, just hit that button.
This would be a good opportunity for me to recognize our staff and thank you guys for all you do, even as you help get the PowerPoint up. But Kelly and Susan and Nathan and Stefan. We appreciate all of you, everything you guys do to make us look good and to keep this operation running. Yes, sir, Mr. Barlow.
Thank you, Representative Heath and Senator Hornback. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. My name is H. Barlow. I'm a Barron County dairy farmer and presently executive director of the Kentucky Dairy Development Council. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about our past and the present and the future of our dairy industry, and we'll try to cover it. I put an agenda in here in my PowerPoint just if you wanted to refer to it in the future. Let's just look a little bit at our organization, how we became part of this organization, how it got started. Tobacco Buyout basically paved the way for us becoming an organization. We worked, we realized that in the dairy industry we didn't have a really outstanding organization that represented the whole state, and we found that we needed to have someone to be a voice for all Kentucky dairymen. Therefore, all Kentucky dairymen are members of the Kentucky Dairy Development Council, and we were funded by the Ag Development Board. Our three main goals, absolutely number one, was to increase profitability for our dairy farmers, improve the production of our dairy farmers, improve the quality of the milk produced in the state, and then to help educate and engage our farmers in learning to use the latest and best technology that is available to improve their dairy operations. Just look a little bit at, you can read this just as well as I can by the numbers, what's happened in the past 15 years. I guess I'd like to concentrate on the bottom line there. Despite losing 2/3 of our dairy farms, in 15 years we saw 57% increase in production per cow and a 42% improvement in quality. And we still are contributing $175 million to Kentucky's agricultural economy on milk being sold at the farm. And I think that's a significant number and something we're proud of. I would like to say that over the past 5 years, Kentucky has led the nation in improvement in production per cow, and we think we had something to do with that. To get some of these things started to improve our dairy situation and on the farm throughout the Commonwealth, we created a Milk Incentive Leadership Kentucky program, and this was a partnership between milk marketing agencies such as DFA and Dean Foods and Borden Incorporated and Prairie Farms to see if we couldn't help our dairy farms do a better job and increase their profitability. And we had 255 dairy farms that participate in this program. You had to meet certain parameters of improvement, and through that, we got a 355 million pound increase over a 7-year period. That was about $67 million of new money going in the Kentucky economy. We accomplished this by putting out incentives that the farmer would receive if he met these parameters, and that was a unique program in that the marketing agency furnished half of those dollars and the KDDC furnished the other half. So it was a real successful program, and we're proud of that. Obviously, I don't have to tell any of you what happened in 2020. Everything changed. COVID hit dairy just like it did everybody else. We actually did have some milk poured out in the state because of, the closure of everything and things being shut down, which was a disgrace really to have that good food go down the drain. But that didn't last very long, and things we did get our supply chain going again. And I would say I'd like to honor every dairy farmer, laborer, and all the people that worked in the food industry that kept us going even when most everything was shut down. The largest food processor for fluid milk in the United States, Dean Foods, filed bankruptcy on us. There was a disruption in the way of, like we was talking about, in cheese production and everything else, and there was a tremendous volatility and change of price in the dairy industry. There was one time we sell milk by the hundredweight. There was milks being sold 1 month for $20 a hundredweight, and then it got as low as like $10 a hundredweight. Now, this didn't last very long, but this extreme volatility caused us a lot of problems, and we realized that we did need to make changes as we go forward. So the big thing that happened after COVID-19 for the dairy farmers and in our organization was we lost the partnership with the marketing agencies. They decided to pull out of cooperating with us, and we realized that to continue to improve our dairy farms, we had to come up with a new program. So we created a new milk program. We called it 4.0. Our idea was to research the best ideas and the best practices across the country and what, how are the dairy farms doing the best. We have other states around us that are superior to us in milk, in milk production and things like that. So how do we emulate those dairies? And we particularly worked with some national dairy recognized consultants, and we came up with 4 major factors we felt like need to be improved. One was genetics, reproductive performance, quality of milk produced, and financial analysis of the dairy operations on the farm. There are dairy cows that can produce 30,000 pounds of milk, and there are dairy cows that produce 15,000 pounds of milk or 10,000 pounds of milk, basically even under the same management practices. So the big factor there difference is genetically. So we were able to create a program with a national genomic company called Zoetis to give us a 50% discount on their testing program, and we've implemented this across, made it available to all of the dairy farmers in the state of Kentucky to test to DNA test. It's basically a DNA test. And this test will identify the highest producing genetics available and to increase their herd as we go forward to breed the right animals to the right sires to get a genetic improvement. We're excited about this program. We have a lot of sign up already. We think it will take us into the decades of the future in the dairy business. Obviously, to participate in any of our programs, you have to be on the Dairy Herd Improvement Record Program. This, we firmly believe if you can't measure it, then you can't improve it. So we believe every farm should be on that. So that's central to all of our programs. We have gone in together with 3 institutions on financial analysis to help the dairy farmer identify the bottlenecks in his operation to help improve, find out what it does, what we need to do to make our situations more profitable. We're excited about this program, and we have just implemented it. I failed to mention a little bit earlier, but there are 4 members on my staff besides myself that we deliver these programs across the Commonwealth to all of our dairy farmers. 2 new programs, and we just heard mentioned a while ago, Commissioner Quarles talked about Cheney's Dairy Barn, which is really one of our, very important, ambassadors for the dairy industry. But there is presently, we are involved, KDDC is involved with the University of Tennessee and North Carolina State on a 3-year, $6 million grant to incentivize people that would like to process milk on their farm to sell it retail or, to put the value added in there to make it another potential operation for the dairy farmers to sell their milk straight retail. This is something that would be good and beneficial for a lot of our smaller operations, and we're excited about that. There's 10 operations currently across the state that are doing this, and we have several more that have anticipating going into this program. This grant program will actually help them buy the equipment needed for pasteurization, for, say, bottling or cheese vats and these kind of things. So it's a real great program, and we're pleased that we got selected to help Tennessee and North Carolina State implement this. A new program is basically gaining steam across the country is Beef on Dairy. This is where you take beef sires and breed them to dairy cows. And basically what's happened with the advent of sexed semen, you can read about it there on my thing, but we can get all of our cows to have heifer calves if we want to. What we've done, we've created a glut of dairy heifers, and this has decreased their value, and it's a little bit of a challenge, but by using genomics and DHR records, we can identify the cows that we want to produce our replacement animals for dairy, and then the rest of the animals we need to create a calf that can be utilized in the beef industry. And this program has taken off nationwide. Basically, you end up with a crossbred calf that has beef characteristics and creates the carcass quality that the beef industry wants. This usually turns out to be about $150 or $200 value above a straight dairy steer or dairy heifer, and the crossbred animal has got a lot of the genetics that they want and the carcass quality that they need for the future. So let's shift gears a minute. We've been talking about economic engines and economic possibilities this morning, which is I think a big deal. And So there's a new era of dairy going on right now. Been privy to the knowledge of a gentleman named Dr. Jack Britt, actually a Kentucky native. I guess he was educated at Western, then ended up in North Carolina State and was the dean of the College of Agriculture, University of Tennessee. He and a group of other professors across the nation decided to do an evaluation of where's dairy headed down the road. Where was dairy headed in the next 20 to 30 years? And basically they came up with the program that's the scarcity of resources out west where most of the cattle are located. This slide, I think, says there's like 42% of the nation's dairy cows are in water stressed areas. And what can we do about that? So on this map, it basically says that we've got all these cows in California, Texas, New Mexico, places that are definitely stressed in water, and they've got to move eastward if they're going to continue their operations. I personally know a dairyman in California last year told me that he had a deep well to use for irrigation and to run his dairy operation. It was 500 feet. He dug 500 feet. Last year he had to go 1,500 feet to find the water that was necessary to operate his dairy. So I personally know some operations that truly do have this stress. There are a lot of other factors out west that cause problems for the dairyman. Urban pressures, obviously, in California. A lot of people may not realize that California is the number one dairy producing state in the nation. We always think Wisconsin's number one, but California is almost twice as large as far as the actual pounds produced. And those people are facing problems. I actually met another dairyman in California that told me about that they had to meet monthly with environmental regulators about noise and smell. And can you imagine operating in those conditions? I mean, I can't imagine doing that myself personally. And I've been a dairyman my entire life. So environmental regulations is a real challenge. Transportation costs has become even a larger challenge than it ever was. Think about the cost of diesel fuel and just moving. Can give you one personal example. We have a nice plant in Litchfield, Kentucky called Bell Cheese. They import most of their milk that they process in that plant from Michigan and from points north. And the French owners, that's a French-owned company, came over here and said, how far are you bringing milk in? They said 400 to 500 miles. And they said, why are we doing that? That's not green. So there's opportunities because of transportation costs to locate more dairies in Kentucky. How do we fit in? Where does Kentucky fit in this? Well, obviously, number one, we have water. We've been averaging about 50 inches a year. All of these places that I just mentioned and on that map depend on irrigation. And those aquifers and those reservoirs, you've all heard the story of what's happening to the water out west. So Kentucky, number one, has water. We have a dairy-friendly environment. Rural Kentucky understands livestock. And I think we have places to put it in. We have a temperate climate. We don't have the extreme cold of the Dakotas. We don't have the extreme heat of Texas and Florida. We have cheap energy available to us. We can produce feed with the best of them. We can make corn silage as good as any place in the nation, and that's very critical. I think rural Kentucky is prime for investment, and we have proximity to all the consumers who are moving from the north to the south. So I think that's always, you need a place to market your milk. And we have an organization here, I think, that has the resources to help facilitate this attracting and trying to get new dairies to come into our area. What would a large dairy look like? We've had some interest already been given to us. We're beginning to get phone calls already. So this is not some dream that we just come up with. But some of these cows, there's dairies across the West that are, all different sizes. But we're talking about a large dairy, a 5,000 cow dairy. You can see there, each cow produces $5,000 worth of sales right off the farm. You can do the multiplier. It's pretty easy to figure out. 5,000 cows, $25 million annually. That's a big business. How many businesses like that? I was thinking about it, say, Trigg County. How many businesses in Trigg County have $25 million annual sales? So it's a great opportunity, I think, for many of our counties across the state. We do create jobs on the farm, like it takes about 10 people per 1,000 cows. These projections are been justified by talking to the large dairymen that we know out in the other states. If you don't do anything else and don't remember anything else that I have to say, and I've heard it mentioned, I guess Senator Webb up there, the economic engine, this is what I'm talking about. Rural Kentucky needs economic engines. And the thing about a dairy, I mean, I've traveled across the state my entire life, and I see these little buildings, these little small factory buildings, you know, located in different counties that are vacant. One thing about you locate a dairy farm, and this can't be moved. You can't take that concrete and you can't move it. And that economic engine in that community is something else. You know, here's a picture right here of a farm, and I've got a neighbor basically in Barron County, Kentucky. They milk 1,500 cows. There are 3 truckloads of milk leave that farm every day. That's 3 truck driving jobs. You know, it's not necessarily the jobs on the farm that we create, but the fuel sales, the fertilizer sales, the veterinarian, the tax base is huge. You know, so I think it would be a real asset to any community that we could locate one of these large dairies. There are other satellite industries that come off of a large dairy, such as feed production we talked about. The manure that we create on a large dairy is excellent fertilizer, could be, you know, really used to grow crops. The market for distillers' byproducts, dairy cows can eat 20 pounds of distillers' products a year, and that's a big deal. A dairy cow is the number one animal in using distillers' byproducts, and so I think that's a positive for our distilling industry. The feeding the replacement animals. We create a lot of replacement animals. A lot of the big dairies don't feed those out there, but they farm them out to adjacent farms, and that could be a place for some of the dairies that have gone out of business that have the infrastructure, the concrete, and the feeding facilities that can do that. We just talked about a little bit about it, my previous speakers, about the beef processing and dairy feeding. There would be dairy beef animals that would need places to go. One brand new thing is we've been contacted and actually have had meetings already in the state with some of our larger producers about methane digesters and creating energy. And they are coming in to visit we have 4 dairies in the state already, over 1,000 cows. We've met with those people. They are interested in creating methane gas. It takes a certain group of farmers to work together, and then they can build an injection site. They scrub the gas, make sure that the gas is successful. And this is in its infancy, but we do have, they've been here, and we actually have a scheduled meeting with these producers coming up in about 2 weeks. So how will it help our present industry? Our infrastructure has been suffering. We've lost a dairy supply company this past year. Veterinarians, we don't have the large animal veterinarians a lot of places in the state we need. It would definitely help the infrastructure to improve, and I think it would help all of our dairy farmers to give us a reinvigoration of the dairy industry. How can we make this happen? How can we become from dreams to reality? I've heard it talked about, and Commissioner Quarles talked about it. It takes a cooperative effort, and I think we would be willing to engage the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. The Economic Development Cabinet is very important in all of this. The Department of Agriculture, the Ag Development Board, all of these things are critical to us being able to attract these dairies. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I've been in contact with people from Kansas, and they did this. They recruited and made economic incentive potentials to bring dairies into their state, and that's been going on for at least 10 years. And because of that, they have a huge processing center making cheese called Hillmar Cheese Company in western Kansas. These are some of the potentials. It is a dream, but it is a strong potential, and I think Kentucky needs to play in that game. The rest of the South really isn't as interested in the dairy. I don't think they have many of the assets that we have here to attract those dairies. So I would like to say that we're, in the game, and we want to be in the game, and I'm sure we would be coming to you maybe for some economic incentives that we could do to attract these businesses. And I hope it would be a reinvigoration of rural Kentucky. So this is kind of our goals and what we'd like to do, and I'd be willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, H. And I'll start. I want to relay a message from Senator Givens. Please tell my friend H. Barlow, job well done. And then I wanted to take our last presenter, Tony Toops, in a rural jobs bill that we've been kicking around here for the last few years, and just mention, Commissioner Quarles mentioned our meat processors. Kentucky has invested $7 million, and I'm sure there's a need for more investment, and I think our rural jobs bill would fit that, what you just talked about with dairy farmers. And then our added value at the farm. I can see opportunities for the rural job bill playing into direct agriculture expansion. So I think we have an interesting session coming up with all the possibilities. Representative McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. That person at 1,500 cow dairy is a cousin of mine in Bryan County there. So, not to digress here, but, the added value that we're having and would have had.
Is your mic on?
It's on. It's,
okay.
Yeah, it's
Maybe pull it
better.
Closer.
All right. The added value we would have had, like you say, $200 per head, and this would have helped the dairy industry, not to have the calf killing plant here. It's just sad that we didn't have that to come through and that to even help with this. But I think in the future, the biggest thing we're going to have a problem with is like we just had with that, is educating the public on how we are doing this and how we're producing, because these large plants, these large dairies that are trying to come on are being killed by the EPA. The one that so we quit dairying about 15 to 20 years ago and converted our farm into raising Holstein heifers, replacement heifers. The dairy up in northern Indiana that we sell those to is shutting down and going to South Dakota because of the EPA. That is what we're going to have to fight more than anything, is to get these dairies, these large-scale dairies, in an area where they can function without fear of the EPA trying to shut them down. I think that's something that we're going to have to work on. Our water is really good, but our water running through and having our creeks and our streams, and so many farms having so many creeks and streams on them, we get monitored so closely, and we have to watch all that. Back when I was at Western, probably 30, 35 years ago, we went to a dairy that was putting manure in pits and capturing the methane off of those and trying to burn that at that time. So there's just lots of things that we can learn, lots of things we're going to have to adapt to, but we're basically going to have to educate our public so that the thing with the calf killing plant, so the thing with these larger dairies will be accepted in our communities. I think that's probably the number one thing we're going to have to do. And I do congratulate Haney's Dairy for being a small family-run dairy that is now being able to market their product in Kroger. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's absolutely essential that we pick and choose the right places to locate these dairies. They don't need to be next to a urban center or a shopping center or a housing project or anything like that. It's absolutely essential. But there are counties, I think, that you heard Commissioner Quarles say, there were 6 county judge executives that called him and said, we'd like to have had that plant. I think we can find that for location of our dairies as well. And, it's, again, it's a cooperative effort. And, we do have these inquiries coming into us. And, if you know of a place that you think might be an excellent place to locate one, we would be more than willing to, work with you and try to find that, place to go.
Anyone else? Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't intend to speak on this subject, but Representative kind of piqued my interest. Just want to throw this out there, food for thought. I recently sat in on a ag task force as part of NCSL in Tampa and represented Kentucky and had some really good presentations. Just want to throw this out. You might want to check on that methane deal. The Biden administration, my understanding, is coming out with new restrictions on methane that are significant. And one thing that piqued my interest as it pertains to dairy is during the COVID pandemic, a lot of dairies were dumping milk, and they were having a lot of problems getting permits from the EPA because milk is considered a toxic substance. So we have serious issues at the federal level that need to be addressed. And with the subsidies, and clearly federal mandates, federal subsidies have not been the answer for Kentucky farmers and dairy farmers in particular. And just wanted to throw out that information. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Thank you, H. We appreciate you coming and bringing us up to speed on what's going on. We welcome those dairy farms from California or Mexico or wherever they want to move to Kentucky from.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Hornbeck, are you taking Senator Schickel's on Zoom? All right. So, Senator Schickel, you're up next. Welcome by Zoom.
Welcome. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank the chairman for allowing me to testify remotely today. It's been a jam-packed day, and I really appreciate it. The bill I'm going to speak about has been pre-filed, so everyone can see it. But before I comment on the bill, I want to just say how much I'm going to miss my friend Paul Hornbeck. I think this is his last interim meeting, and being from outside the agricultural community, Paul is one of my very best friends who I depend on for a lot of advice and counsel, and we are just going to sure miss him in the Senate at large. I also want to tell the chairman of the committee how much I've enjoyed the testimony today. Usually when you're waiting for an hour and a half to testify, it's you're doing other things, but what goes on in this committee is very, very interesting, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. The bill I'm going to talk about today is very simple, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As I said before, it's pre-filed so you can review it. I'm hoping this will start the discussion about a matter which is of concern to me, and I think it's really of concern to a lot of Kentuckians. And I have gotten some phone calls and emails, both pro and con, from our agricultural committee, from our agricultural community about it. I also want to preface my statements by saying I feel like this begins the discussion. I'm willing to work with the Kentucky Retail Federation and anyone else that's interested in this legislation to maybe try to draft something in the coming sessions. What it does, very simply, is it requires fresh produce in stores, not farmers markets, but in stores, that it be identified by the state that it comes from and the season which is harvested in. That quite simply is the bill, and I'm open for any questions.
Do we have any questions from the members? Chairman Hornbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And John, thank you for the kind comments. I sure appreciate that. And John's taking up farming now. He's got some fruit trees. So glad to have you join in with us, John. You know, something we've done, and I'll give a lot of credit to our retail stores, and this is kind of an expansion of that, but the help they've given us on Kentucky Proud over the last few years. And what that has done, they've gone above and beyond on Kentucky Proud and the labeling of that, the recognition of that. I see Dave Maples, the Beef Cattle Association, sit out here, and what they've done with our beef process. It's processed right here in Kentucky. And this is kind of another extension of that. You know, our consumers are now demanding or wanting more local produce, and for sure consumers are wanting to know where products they buy come from. And this is an extension of that. I appreciate you, John, bringing this to us, or Senator Schickel bringing this to us, and we'll see how things go if we get it worked out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up, if I may, Mr. Chairman, to my comments.
Sure. Yes, that's fine.
The question some may have was, why is this necessary? Why would anybody want to do this? As a hobby, and I know a lot of friends of mine, when I go into a store, I always inquire, let's say we're an apple, if I'm purchasing apples or another fruit, I always inquire where it's coming from. Of course, if it's, I'm fortunate enough this could be Kentucky Proud, that's not in question. But many times, actually all the time, when you inquire this, most of the stores do not know, at least the people working in the stores do not know where that produce is coming from. And when you look at the fine print, it is only identified if it's from outside the United States. Consumers such as myself, I try to buy things that are in season. I try to buy things that are generally in the same time zone. Those kind of choices are important to me. And what I'm finding from pre-filing this legislation and hearing that it's important for some other people, you know, a lot of other folks too. I know there's a lot of problems, logistical problems to be worked out, and I look forward to that dialogue.
Thank you. And we have a comment or question from Senator Thayer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And while I'm enjoying all of the plaudits today for Chairman Hornback, I do want to remind everybody that he has another full year as a member of the General Assembly and as chairman of this committee. So let's hold the valedictory addresses for this time next year, please, for all of our sake and sanity, so we only have to hear it once. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Point well taken. If there's nothing else, we'll let you get back to your other activities. Senator Schickel, and thanks for joining in on our last
Thank you,
interim
Mr.
joint.
Chairman and members of the committee, and thank you for letting me do this remotely. And I have no problem with praising Paul in 2 years.
So I'm last on the agenda today, and I'll be brief. Commissioner Quarles mentioned in his comments maybe the need for legislation, and I'm working with some of my colleagues to look into some legislation we're looking at several different paths. We don't know exactly which one this will take. We just feel like we need to do something to have a representative of the ag community on the Economic Development Board when ag issues come up, like the one we discussed in Christian County. So one proposal is asking the cabinet to reach out to the Commissioner of Agriculture, or requiring the cabinet to reach out to the Commissioner of Agriculture when there's an ag project in play. Another school of thought is going ahead and putting the Commissioner of Agriculture or his designee as a permanent member on the Economic Development Cabinet, so they don't have to be invited to come to the table. They're already at the table. Another school of thought was to require that Kentucky Farm Bureau have a seat on the Economic Development Cabinet. So these are some of the ideas we're kicking around, and not trying to pick on anybody or be punitive. We just don't want a repeat of what happened in Christian County going forward, and we're talking about going forward for years to come, not just this administration, not just this legislative body. So as an individual taking the lead on the bill, may not be the sponsor of the bill, but I'm taking the lead for right now. I welcome your input and your comments, and if you have some ideas on which direction you think that should go, I'd appreciate that. So, Chairman Hornback.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you for bringing this up, and you and I had talked about it before, and I appreciate you bringing this up because it's something that definitely needs to be done. And if you look at what happened down in Christian County, and the fact that economic development or the governor or anybody reached out to anybody in agriculture, not Dave Maples back there with the Beef Cattle Association, not the Commissioner of Agriculture, nobody reached out to try to get input from those that know what these facilities mean. This could have been averted. The governor could have done this. We could have taken people down there to Christian County, had them go look at other facilities around over the nation, and like the commissioner said, there would not have been all this rhetoric going around that was not true. We could have gotten the truth out, and this definitely needs to happen because it's evident that at a lot of times, even though agriculture is the largest collective industry in the state, we get neglected when it's time to have economic development package, because some people kind of just don't really consider agriculture to be an industry. And we need to make sure we have a point on it. And a lot of people know already that Farm Bureau has 3 nominees for the Economic Development Board. Now, they're not mandated that the administration or anybody has to pick one of those, but Farm Bureau already has 3 nominees to that board, and they chose not to pick any of them and leave agriculture completely unrepresented on the board. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to working with you on this. It's a good bill.
Thank you, Chairman Hornback. Anybody else want to comment or weigh in on it? If not, then there's a final notice down there, item number 4, information item. The Tobacco Research and Development Center quarterly report is available with our staff. If you guys want to see that or have a need for it, just get with them, and we don't have it in your folder. If there's nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned.